Hey friends, as you can tell, it's a little dreary today. We're getting quite a bit of rain here in New Mexico. And what I thought I would do is film a little bit of what my next project is going to be. And that's turning this 20-pound propane tank into a wood-burning stove. Now, my purpose in doing this is when I do winter camp as a mountain man muzzle loader, I stay in my diamond fly, and I usually set my diamond fly up just a little bit different than most. So what I want to do is to make a small wood burning stove that sets low to the ground, and I want the chimney to come out through the back so that I can vent the smoke outside my diamond fly. So I'm going to film this in steps, kind of give everybody, a view of what I'm doing. And I'm going to tell you guys right now, if you go on YouTube, there's a lot of other videos on other folks turning these used propane tanks into wood burning stoves. So it's my recommendation that you go and watch a whole bunch of them, learn how to purge the tank, what might be necessary, and look at how everyone else has chosen to make their wood burning stove out of these small propane tanks, which are just generally now throwaway items. Once they get to the point to where they won't either recertify them or the rubber seals inside the valves go bad, at that point it's cheaper just to throw the tank away and buy a new one. The one I just bought recently, because the valve went bad in this tank, brand new tank, was only 40 bucks at Costco. So it's not worth me messing with having to replace a valve. So anyhow, my secondary thought is to turn it into a wood stove. And once again, go on YouTube if you have an idea to do this. Go on YouTube and look at what everybody's doing, because you might be able to incorporate another person's idea so that you can have the stove that you've always desired. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do yet. I know I'm going to take my sander and try to sand the paint off. A lot of guys recommend burning the paint off. I'm going to try sanding it. If it works, great. If not, well, then I'm going to do like everyone else and burn it off. And eventually I'm going to end up having the stove that I think is going to suit me the best. So this is one of these projects that I'm going to be making it up along the way. So please join with me in the journey. So I elected try to sand off the paint, and since time is on my side at this point in my life, it's going to take a little time, but it is working. And I'm only using 120 grit 3M sandpaper. I'm sure it'd go a lot quicker if I had 100 grit, but hey, I'm using what I have. So I'm going to shut the camera off. Going to spend some time sanding the paint off, and when I get to the next portion, we'll discuss this project a little further at that point. Alright, at this point I thought I would show you some things that I discovered on my own. First of all, one of the fellows on YouTube suggested when you cut the lid, cut it at an angle like this. Once you get your circle and you figure out where you want your lid to be, cut it like that instead of cutting it straight like this. In theory, cutting it straight in to the lid like that, you would leave a lip for the lid to naturally set upon. In theory, it works, but in practicality, well, I had to go to Plant 13B. Let me explain. By the time I got cleaning up the lid or the lip which would be on the lid and the lip which would be on the tank, I found out that they weren't fitting like they should have. So fortunately, I have some metal in my shop, and I was able to make a ring for the lid to sit flat upon. Let me show that to you right here. Now that ring I made is maybe 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch. I still have a little bit more cleanup work to do on that, a little more grinding of the welds and kind of, you know, build a profile, but that's going to work because it's going to allow the lid to sit flat and seal. And I'll figure out exactly where that hinge needs to be and weld it in place so that when I close the door, it'll close flat. And if you've also, we'll also take a look at this, you'll see that the natural handle that's on the propane tank, well, I actually reduced that a little bit, and that'll actually be the handle to open and close the door so that I can feed with more fire. Well, that's where I'm at right now. Let me continue on, and I'll interrupt when I get to the next step. Okay, just want to show you, friends, at what stage I'm at with this propane stove. And let me get this out of the way first. If you are not comfortable in doing this because it's a used propane tank, by all means, do not do it. As I stated earlier, you can go on YouTube and you can learn how to evacuate the propane that's in the tank. A lot of the guys just simply remove the valve, fill it full of water, drain it a couple, 3 times, let it dry. And there again, if you're not comfortable, don't do it. If you would like something like this and you don't want to deal with any inherent danger of the propane, the last propane tank that I purchased brand new at Costco was only like 40 bucks. So that's another option. Anyhow, with that out of the way, let me explain what I've done thus far. If you look at the bottom here, I actually installed a 2-inch cap with a 2-inch pipe nipple, and I plan on using that to sweep out the ashes. For my intended purpose, I can just put a can underneath this, sweep the ashes, and then just go bury them somewhere. For me, it's just a real convenient way of cleaning this out. Something else that I've done, I don't know how well the camera can pick it up, but what I've done is I've installed some 3/4 by 3/4 inch square pipe. And I figured out the depth that went all the way to the back wall with it. Not only does it act as a support for the grate, I also made it, and the legs are removable. For me, it's just easy moving. I don't know how well the camera can pick it up, but right here and right here, I fit the 3/4 by 3/4 inch pipe, and I'm using that as an airflow. I haven't actually decided if I'm going to gate these yet, because I want to see how well it's going to provide air, because what I did is I drilled a series of holes on the bottom side, so that my thought process is that as it draws air, it's going to be able to draw air to the back end of this stove. And I'm thinking, in theory, that it should help burn the wood more evenly. So that's my game plan for doing what I did. I can always add a gate later once I get to the burn test. Let me reinstall this here real quick. Now the other thing that I've done is I'm going to use the valve as a center gate for the airflow. And I'm thinking that's going to work just as well for air supply. Now, what I plan on doing today is getting the 3-inch stovepipe installed. I went to O'Reilly's and I bought a 3-inch adapter. I'm going to use that for the stovepipe because I want to be able to carry this, you know, to a rendezvous, to a winter camp. And I also have another purpose that since I do smoke deer hides, I'm also going to use this as a source for providing the smoke when I get to the point of smoking hides. So that's what I plan on doing today. Hopefully I'll get that done. And as you can see, I've installed the door latch. Everything else is pretty much straightforward. So I'm going to go to work on this today, get everything situated, figure out what angle I want, because I actually want to come off the back of the stove since I have a diamond fly. It's not very tall the way I set mine up. It's not traditionally set up as a diamond fly. And once I get all this done, the burn test done, I'll set up the diamond fly and I'll show you exactly what I'm speaking to. So my intended goal is to come off the back of the heater, the wood stove, and go straight out and then have another 90-degree once I get past the opening of my diamond fly, and then go straight up and get all the smoke to evacuate above my diamond fly. So that's where it is for this at this point. Once again, I cannot reiterate enough. If you are uncomfortable in doing any of this, do not do it. If you really like what's being explained here, then please go on YouTube and watch people evacuate any remaining gas or anything like that. Have a bunch of different videos in mind so that you can decide what you want to do with your own personal stove. Alright, I'm going to get to work here, and probably what I'll do is when I get everything done, I bought the stovepipe paint, the stove paint I should say. Let me get that real quick so you can kind of get an idea what I'm going to be using. So what I purchased is Rust-Oleum brand, high heat. Now the can states that this particular stove paint will resist heat up to 1200 degrees. Well, if this stove ever reaches 1200 degrees, I think my lodge is going to catch fire. But anyhow, that's the paint that I purchased. It does resist heat up to 1200 degrees. So anyhow, let me get to work and I'll catch up with you just as quick as I can. Just to give you friends a little bit of a visual aid as to what I'm trying to achieve. This particular stove, as it's going to be used in my diamond fly. The pole that you're looking at is the pole that I use at the entry of my diamond fly. That pole is 5 foot tall. Now the difference between what would be the top of the stovepipe and the roof of my diamond fly is 34 inches. Now when I set up my diamond fly, my front entry is always open. So I believe at this point that there's enough airspace between the top of the stovepipe and what would be the roof of my diamond fly to prevent any, excess heat or even excess smoke or anything to that effect. But this is what I'm looking to achieve right here. If for some reason I get this to a rendezvous or even testing it out here on my property, if I have to lower that down a couple of inches, obviously I can remove the height of the legs and that would get me what I'm looking for. So at this point I'm ready to cut and fit the baffle. I have not welded in the pipe for the stovepipe yet, or the extension for the stovepipe, because I want to allow myself some room to be able to fit the baffle. And I just plan on using a piece of very thick table saw blade. Actually, it's 16-inch table saw blade, so it's actually an industrial blade. So that's what I'm going to work on next, and stay tuned for the next portion of this. Now, as you friends can see, the stove is set up. This is how I plan, for the time being, setting this up in my Diamond Fly. As you can see, I have a 3-foot extension with a 90-degree coming off the top of the stove, the stack, and then it's going to go right straight up to 6 feet. I also forged up a lantern hook. As you can see, my lantern is right at the end of the hook, but the lantern stand itself is what's going to be the supporting mechanism for keeping that pipe straight up, stabilized, and keeping the smoke above my lodge. That's my game plan for now. Now, whether that actually works out as I am thinking in my mind, only time will tell. So I'm going to pause it right here and try to get a fire going. This is the first burn. I want to burn off some of the smokes or toxins that might be associated with that black paint. The problem that I'm facing right now is that we just got done with a 2-day storm here in New Mexico, and we got almost 3 inches of rain, so all the wood is wet. I'm using some cholla that actually dries out a lot quicker. Let me show you a piece of that right here. I actually like starting my fires with this because, as you can see, it could get an awful lot of oxygen as it burns. These chollas typically burn fast, burn hot, but we'll see how it goes. So I'm going to put the camera down, get a fire going, get a fire lit, and we'll see how it burns. There's a little smoke coming out of the top of the stack. It's doing what it should be doing, venting the smoke. Well, it's burning. I'm going to let that cholla get good and scorched, good and burnt, before I go ahead and shut the door. Like I said, the wood around here is pretty darn wet right now, so I know that I'm burning some wet wood. But at least for the time being, the initial burn, I'm getting off some of the toxins that might be associated with the black paint. So let's just watch this as it does its thing. So some of your friends may be wondering why I chose to build this stove on its side, and it's just a matter of preference. I'm thinking that I can get longer pieces of wood in it as opposed to you know, standing it up like a propane tank normally would be stood up. That's the only reason why, just simply because I believe I can get longer burns by putting in longer pieces of wood. So I'm going to go ahead and move around to the front and put some pieces of juniper in that I just cut up. Well, it looks like this is going to burn pretty good inside my lodge. I can tell already just from where I'm sitting how much heat is actually coming off of this stove. And I know the camera can't pick it up as well as I can see it, but there's quite a bit of heat coming off of this pipe. I did put a baffle in here below the opening for the 3-inch stovepipe, just simply because I don't want the flame to go up directly into the pipe. I'm given to understand because of that it does cut down on the amount of smoke, because it acts, if I understand correctly, it acts as like an afterburner. I don't know whether that's really true or not, but so far I'm happy with the way this is burning. And you can see my lantern right there, so that if I have to get up in the middle of the night and take care of a little bit of business, I can find my way back to my lodge. I'm going to pan on up to the top of the stovepipe, and there's not a whole lot of smoke coming out of that right now. And there again, that might just simply because what I'm burning is the cholla, and the cholla does not usually put off a whole lot of smoke, just simply because it burns very efficiently. Thus far, I'm happy with it. I'm going to reach over and shut the door and just see how it burns at this point. Okay, it's been 3-4 minutes. I completely shut the stove down, so I'm actually starving it of oxygen. And as one would typically expect, you would get a bunch of smoke out of the stack. Well, that has already happened, and right now there's just a little bit of smoke coming out. Don't believe the camera can pick it up. But as I mentioned during the build, I have the rack being supported by 2 pieces of 3/4 by 3/4 inch square pipe, and I did drill a series of holes in that pipe. My intended purpose was to have it continue to feed a little bit of oxygen to this stove as it's shut down. So I'm gonna get repositioned, open up the door, and kind of see what the fire looks like at this point. Okay, here we go. I'll try to keep the camera as steady as I can, but I make no promises. Oh yeah, it's burning very well. I'm guessing having holes drilled in those 2 pieces of pipe that are supporting the rack or the grate is still going to feed this fire with enough oxygen with the gate and everything shut down. And that's really my intended purpose in doing this, is so that as I sleep through the night, I still have oxygen feeding the fire. And opening up the door, it looked like it's going to work. So at this point, guys, friends, thanks for watching. Hope I've given you some ideas what to do with a junk propane bottle. And like I said before, you can go on YouTube. There's all kinds of people making these things, do-it-yourselfers. Just go and look at a bunch of them. Learn how to make the tanks safe before you cut into them. Wouldn't want anybody to, get blowed up. But all of that information is readily available on YouTube. So thanks for watching. I'm going to sit here and enjoy this. I can't tell at this point if I'm getting hot because of the sun or because of this fire. But either way, I love global warming. Have a great day, guys. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe also. Bye.